episode 7 of the Bullpen. We have a awesome guest on, Jesse Bugger, the head coach of Triad down there in Southern Illinois, coming on today. But no, how's everybody doing? You guys have a good weekend?
Yeah, good.
Good. Got all my Christmas wrapping done this weekend, so I'm all set.
Wrapping, not even you're already done shopping?
Yeah, I'm already done. I mean, I got to get a few smaller things for when I go back home to Ohio over the holidays, but no, all the big stuff's wrapped, and I don't have to worry about it.
It's pretty mature of you. It's good.
Yeah, thank you.
You're making me look bad, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm not.
I'm nowhere close.
Way to be on it, Jeff. Yeah, it was a good weekend. Actually, did you guys watch much college basketball at all, or you guys?
No.
My Dayton Flyers had a big win
I did
Saturday
see that.
night over Marquette. That was huge. That's why you don't go to UD Arena. If you're a good team, all your hopes and dreams die. It is what it is.
Go ahead, Drew.
No, I saw that as well, and I saw some of that Illinois game, which I'm guessing you might be wanting to mention here, Gavin.
Yes, that team is Illinois is really good, and it stinks that they lost to Tennessee. But I was thinking about they just lost by 2 points to the number 1 team in the country, and they looked really good. They didn't look like they were outmatched by any means. So, no, that was awesome to see. And that Kasparis Jonas kid, the freshman point guard, is such a stud. He'll probably be a top 5 pick, I would think. So
Were they ranked
No.
at all this year or no?
Illinois came in unranked to the season, and then they got, I think, midway, 5-6 games in, they got put in the top 20, but then they lost to Northwestern and they got booted out. But yeah. But no, I think their net ranking is like top 15, which I'm honestly not sure what that is. I think it has to do with stats or something like that. But no, they're fun. They're fun to watch. But yeah, looking at the high school preseason questionnaire, we just sent that out. I don't know, what was that, last week or the week before maybe, to high school coaches around the state. But we actually got a lot of responses back already, which is awesome to see. It's super helpful for us. But I'll kind of open it up to you guys. Like, Drew, I don't know if you have anything that you want to mention on the high school preseason questionnaire. But
Yeah, a couple things. It's early for us to be sending it out, but I think kind of like the earlier the better. We can start to work through some of those responses, and there's a lot of benefits to it. First, just finding out about how a team's going to be, who they lost from the previous years. So listing all the 2024 grads that are no longer there, how many returners they have back, their confidence level on their team this year. We had them grade out, how good do they think they're going to be from a 1 to 5 scale. And then top arms coming back, top juniors, top seniors, top players that maybe they face in their conference. We give them an opportunity to let us know, like, hey, what can we do better from our coverage standpoint? And really, it goes into all of our preseason Power 25 rankings. We don't. Yes, there is knowledge that we have, that we see in tournaments and from last spring and things that we can maybe, evaluate a program, with our own eyes. But when it comes to actually ranking the Power 25 and, who's going to get in, who's going to miss out or be just on the, just miss the cut, like, we use all of this info that the coaches give us. Because there's a number of times I got burned in the past where we would maybe see a guy at a tournament or at a showcase and they would list themselves as a certain high school. So when the preseason preview came out and we're looking at a team, I knew I saw this guy, but the coach didn't mention him on the preview, and we put him in, in our evaluation of the program, yet that player wasn't playing high school baseball for one reason or another. So it has burned me in the past to where now we strictly are going off of the info that these high school coaches are giving us. Some are way more detailed than others, and for those high school coaches that do put in all that information, like, that is gold to us. So, like, I can't thank you guys enough, coaches out there. And just the amount of people coaches that have already submitted a questionnaire has been, it's always a breath of fresh air when you see all those come in. You got high school coaches that are locked in. I want to say we sent out that email on Thursday, and by Friday we had like 30 responses. So, shout out to Eric Regis at Herscher, first one to get it in. Right behind him was Kevin Sefcik at Marist. So just speaking to two guys that were locked in and all over their clubs, and had all the information at the ready. So thank you to those coaches and everybody else who got it in. I saw Mark Smith at Providence got his in, returning 4A state champs, and briefly looking through the submission, like, that's a program that's going to be hard not to be number one next year. They bring back basically everybody. I know they lose a really good player in Jackson Smith going to Bradley. But Gav, I hope that's just a little introduction to it. We'll get into more of the high school preseason questionnaire as we get closer to doing the Power 25 rankings in February, in early March, as we're getting through all of our winter season, because that's another thing too is, yes, it's great to get this info in from the high school coaches right now. And we're gathering all that, and we're making, little cheat sheets or rough drafts of like, hey, this team could be a top 10 team. This team could be a top 20 team. But we're also then going to let the winter play out. See all these guys in showcases. Like, there may be an arm for Manuka, Zane Caves, who was 82-84 last spring or last summer, but now all of a sudden we see him at an event in the winter and he's 86-90. And it's like, okay, that's a bona fide ace, or whatever it may be, whatever the case may be. So, it pumps me up, like, just to think that the spring is not that far away, especially as we're kind of entering winter here in Illinois and Chicago. And it's right around the corner. And, at least for me, like, high school baseball is probably my favorite time of the year. So I don't know if you guys have anything else to add on that, but that's what I've got, Gav.
No, it's a ton of fun. The high school season's always a lot of fun. Just seeing those matchups, the rivalries. Seeing the kids that we see in tournaments at showcases come back to their high school team is always a lot of fun. But one thing that I really wanted to mention was at this year's IHSA or IHS-BCA conference or convention, we are wanting to do and planning on doing some like short 10, 15-minute podcasts with some of those high school coaches. And I think we've talked about sending out like a form to coaches sometime before that to kind of have like a sign-up sheet and, talk through their teams and stuff and kind of just have like a podcast form of our preview stories for these high school teams. So that'll be kind of fun, and I'm excited for that. But
yeah, well, just to provide a little more color on that, like for any coaches that have come to that convention before, we always have a booth. There is a vendor area for all coaches to come. We will have our normal booth, and we still have to talk through exactly how we want to set this up. Because during typical, like, hey, you have your 20-minute break here from all the speakers, all these high school coaches tend to circulate in that vendor room. It can get really loud. So figuring out when we want to do it, I think having a little, 10-minute increments to where they can get in, coaches can get, give some love to their players, their program, get it on video. I think it'd be great content for these coaches to talk about their players. So, how we go about sending out a timesheet or when to sign up, we'll have to figure all that out. But just, hey, coaches out there, if you are planning on coming to that convention, like, start to think about your 2025 roster. Who your arms are going to be, young guys to look out for, who's impressing, and we would love to talk to you at the convention. Whether you guys think you're going to win 10 games this spring or 40 games this spring, like, if there are players on your team that you want to talk about, or matchups or your area or whatever it is, utilize that, because I think it could be really cool, something that, maybe we can build off of too.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think getting into our next segment here, it's something that we were talking about last week in our meeting for this episode, and I think we're all pretty excited about it. It was kind of a big topic of discussion in our meeting last week, so we are going to do a draft for our favorite high school fields to go to or watch a game at, and it's kind of going to be based on, like, our answers are going to be based on kind of like our personal, like, if it's, I like watching a game there, I like scouting a game there, but we'll kind of explain that as we roll out our answers. But basically what we'll do, it's going to be a snake draft. We're going to have each get 4 picks, and then we'll talk through some honorable mentions. The one thing that we were going to do is we had to figure out the order on the call. So I have I mean, unless you guys have another way to do it, I have a wheel pulled up on my screen, so I can just put our names in and decide the wheel for number 1, 2, 3, and 4. But Pete wants him and Drew to go last, just since they've been doing it the longest.
Well,
so
I
guess,
mean, I don't. It doesn't have.
How do you want to do it?
It doesn't have to be that way. I was just trying to be nice to you guys.
All right.
I'm gonna work hard no matter what to not steal venues from you guys. Having the luxury of having done this for many years, I've been able to see a lot of different venues around the state, and I think the one thing we all realize too is like we haven't seen all the venues. There's probably a lot of cool fields out there that we just haven't been to, but these are all the ones that we have been to that we know that for whatever reason we love them. Whether it's the vibe, whether it's like the backdrop you get at UIC on a beautiful summer day there when we're watching a summer tournament, or hey, this field is amazing to scout because right behind home nobody else is allowed back there. We can go left, right, get all the different sides for the hitters, the pitchers, all that stuff. And like you said, we'll get into it more and I'll break down why I like certain venues, but not just like, hey, this is the most pure field in the state.
Yeah. Drew, I just want to clarify too, because we talked about this. We're going no college fields, right?
Well, that's the hard thing is because, I mean, you mentioned normally U-High plays at Illinois State.
Yeah.
There are definitely other venues like you're talking about. So I would say personally, like, let's try to stick with non-college venues, and maybe we can throw some out at the end. But yeah, I think that's a good clarification there, Gavin.
All right, so we're just sticking to high school fields, no pro, like minor league fields, nothing like that. Just high school fields. So I've got the wheel set up here. What do we want to do? Do we want to start at the 4th pick down or start at number 1 pick? And then
I think whoever wins the wheel gets the number 1 pick.
All right, let's see. What do we got here? Can you guys hear that? The spinning?
No,
what do you know? I get number 1 pick. All right.
Rigged.
So I'm going to be number 1 here. I'll take my name off. And then let's see who number 2 is. 2 is Tyler. All right, so Pete, it's working out how you said it should.
That's it. Ball don't lie. That's fair.
All right, and then 3 and 4. Pete is 3, and Drew, you are going to be 4.
That's like pretty much. That's pretty much perfect. How didn't
so do I need to prepare for 2 picks right now?
Yeah.
We're snaking
so you're going to go
Yes.
back to back.
Oh boy. Okay, and this will be my number 1 seed and my number 2 seed.
Yep.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Or
Okay.
you can try and do it to where like you pick something that you try and save a good pick that no one's going to pick. Also,
I've got a couple of those where there's no way you guys will pick them.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll
Yeah,
see.
maybe
We'll see how
one.
this goes.
All right. Well, I think I've been talking about this since we started talking. The number 1 pick is Edwardsville for me. It's going to be down there in Southern Illinois. They have like the most electric atmosphere. And I think it's a good place to scout a game too. But just for me, like this one it's just an awesome environment. Really nice field. Really nice setup. So Edwardsville, number 1.
Well, and just pulling into Edwardsville, you get a immediate just vibe of like this is a brand new, beautiful complex. They have a swimming center right there by the parking lot. Their JV turf field is right there next to the parking lot, and then you go, I guess it would be the west side of the parking lot is the varsity field, and what they've done behind home plate with like the brick and all of the I think they have like Tom Pyle and all the state titles and what they've done in the outfield wall. That's a pretty big time pick there, Gavin. 1-1. I'm a little jealous.
Yeah, Drew, I will never forget. I'm not gonna lie. I've actually not watched or scouted a game at Edwardsville, but during the Kickoff Classic last year, you were down there watching Brother Rice and Edwardsville. So I walked down and watched the last couple innings. And that was it was at night too, so it was just super cool environment. Ton of fans there. They were all super excited about it. Super close game too. 2 really good teams in the state, so it was awesome. It was an awesome electric matchup to watch. So I'm sure that all of their games are like that for the most part, especially when they're playing some of those rivalry schools down there in Southern Illinois. So.
Well, the fan and the amount of spectators, I think, plays into who we're choosing for venues. you couldn't be more spot on. Like Edwardsville draws a great crowd, and they know baseball. They're baseball fans down there, like they get it. So it's always fun to sit in the stands there.
All right, Tyler, who do you got with number 2 here?
Well, I'm just gonna throw the disclaimer out there for anybody listening that I've only been covering high school stuff for one spring, so my palette's probably gonna be a little smaller than these guys on this call. But my first selection is gonna be Kerrywood Field over there on the north side of Chicago. DePaul College Prep and Lane Tech share it. I think there's a few other schools that share it, but for me, from a scouting perspective, it's like perfect. It's like a whole concrete concourse behind home, and you can easily move from both sides of the batter's box and get a ton of video. And it's just really, it makes our lives really easy as scouts. So, and then you also got a nice view of the Chicago skyline in the background. So for me, Kerrywood, number 1.
All right, Pete, what do you got here?
I got a lot of options here, but I think I'm going to go with Lockport. I just love it's like the northern version of Edwardsville, like the whole setup they have and like the stadium feel. It almost feels like like a summer league field where you walk in, they got like concessions, they got like different parts you can sit. It's just really easy to like scout to, in my opinion. Like behind the plate, they got the big bleachers with the backs on the seats. You can just sit there and gun, and then you can hop down and go down the line. But I think the baseball in Lockport is really big, just like Edwardsville. Like they draw a lot of fans, especially come playoff time. It's just always one of my favorites. I get excited every time I hear I'm going out there.
All right, Drew, you got back-to-back picks here at 4 and 5. What do you got?
Well, and I was just dissecting my list as you guys were picking, because I didn't really chime in when Tyler picked Kerrywood and then Hammett picked Lockport there. And Lockport's a place I've gone to watch a number of games, and I do love that place. You kind of wander down the right field line if you want to get some views of the, like just a different look at the game. I always like getting a view of the infielders in between innings and stuff like that. Sometimes you can get stuck behind home, and this is a field I think that I'm going to go 1-1 with, where you can get stuck behind home. But when you talk about being able to scout, get right up against, a net for a pitcher, not have, a whole bunch of fans, right next to you. You can wander left and right a little bit to get side of hitters. And then I'm always seeing an awesome matchup there. The fans are always rowdy. I got to go St. Lawrence. They just, they got turf on the infield now. It's part of the Chicago Catholic League Blue. And there's a lot of passion, I would say, that gets going during those games. I don't know if I've ever been there for a matchup that wasn't a big time matchup. But they block off right behind home for just press, or scouts. And we are very lucky that they do that. I've seen a number of amazing matchups there too, which I think plays into it. I remember the Nazareth-Lamont game in a regional, and that was, I believe it led to Nazareth's first state title there a couple years ago when they ended up winning 2 straight. But and then also just a number of good St. Lawrence. I remember watching Jimmy Burnett throw there, who's had a great career, post high school. So yeah, St. Lawrence 1-1. It's a really special place.
And Drew, that's where Tyler and I saw our first game as prep baseball interns back in 2022.
Good call.
You and Steve Nielsen took us there, and we're doing our what did we call that? Our scouting
school.
Scout school, yeah, scout school.
And I don't know who the teams were for sure. I just remember one of them being Marist.
It was St. Lawrence and Marist.
Okay, so St. Lawrence and Marist.
And Luke Stolga hit 2 bombs that game.
Yeah.
And I remember Joe Olson was also pitching. He was just a freshman at the time. And, I remember we had to write, a scouting report on him. That was, our homework after the game. And then, a week later, he committed to Louisville. So I'll never forget that for sure.
That's pretty. The one thing I remember about that game is watching pregame infield. And somebody who wasn't even doing, pregame infield, he was just flipping the balls to Coach Sefcik for the fun. It was Aiden Flynn, walking around there as a freshman with an unbelievable looking frame. You couldn't miss him on the field. I remember Steve being like, "Who is that guy?" and you look at kind of where Aiden Flynn is now, really cool to see. But yeah, St. Lawrence number one. I gotta look here. I gotta make sure I like my number two. I think, man. So I haven't been there often. I want to say I've only been there twice. But very memorable when I went there, and my number two is going to be Rochester. I don't know if you guys have been there. I don't know why I like it so much, but there's something about it. Maybe the fact that the first time I went there was to watch Tyler Fitzgerald. And I saw him go yard in his first at bat. I'll never forget the visual, kind of hugged it down the line. It was a no doubter. The only question was if it was going to be fair or foul. And then in that same game, watching Cam Edmondson, a little lefty, just competitor, really, really good breaking ball. I don't know what grad year he would have been, maybe 2018, 2019. He ended up going to Indiana State, had a couple good years at Indiana State, might still be there. But Rochester, the one thing that stood out to me is, well, first off, they were watering their infield dirt before the game, which any high school field that has a legitimate watering setup, not like a hose they're running out that barely gets, around the mound or the plate. Like, I'm talking an industrial hose that you would see at a big league park. They were using that on the infield, and all that does is bring me back to my days of coaching. And one of my favorite things to do is watering and dragging the infield. You want to talk about therapeutic. Man, after a practice, being able to drag that infield and water it and get it looking pure, and then the sprinklers go on. So, that's part of this high school venue here is definitely nostalgia for me. So that was one. But behind home plate at Rochester, they have like a really unique setup to where you can sit up in some bleachers and get a view. But if you want to, you can. In the middle, there's like a cutout area where you can stand, and you're not really blocking anybody that would be behind you on the bleachers. And I love that field. I remember going down the left field line, the third base line, and watching guys hitting the cage. Man, they've had some really good players come through Rochester as well. So sorry for the long-winded 1 and 2 there, but just brings back a ton of great memories.
All right, Pete, what do you got here for your second pick?
I'm going to try and grab this while I can. I don't know who else has been there, but I'm going to go with Fallon for number two. I haven't been there in a little while. I think I've only actually been there once, but it was really memorable for me. It's like just baseball's huge down in Edwardsville, that whole area. So, I mean, they have a ton of pride in their field and just their program in general. So, really good fans. A lot of people go and watch, and it's pretty rowdy. And then I just love the whole, the setup of where it's, covered. That's just, you don't really see that very often. So when you do, it stands out for sure. But I thought it was really easy to, maneuver around there. I liked just kind of sitting up at the top of the bleachers and gunning, and then I could move around freely. But, yeah, I think the covered stadium is pretty big time. And you don't really see it very often. So I think that you got to call it out when you see it.
No, that's a good pick there, Pete. They were actually on my list, so I was actually hoping I'd grab them on the end around there. So, good pick by you. I'm gonna hop in. My next pick is going to be Nazareth Academy. First off, the field is really nice. They got an all-turf setup there. But what's really big time now is they have a section behind home plate completely blocked off for scouts now. So how they have it is they actually have some chairs back there for scouts. Obviously Naz, they have some pro scouts there from time to time at their games. But for us, it's huge because, again, I can move freely behind home, so first base side to the third base side. And they also, maybe get some extra credit points for me because they're right down the road from me. So, no, it's a big time place to go watch a game, and I was actually lucky enough to see a couple really close games there last spring. So, Naz is my next pick.
All right, my second pick here. I'm very fortunate that I have a lot of these Central Illinois schools that maybe you guys haven't been to or been to as much. These next few are tough for me. I'm not going to lie. I feel like I have some pretty good options to choose from. But number two, I'm going to go Morton.
That was on my list. That was high up on my list, Gavin.
Yeah. They have it's just an awesome, really nice field, and kind of like Drew, you were talking about with how they water. Was it Rochester? You were saying they watered their field, and they have like a really nice, like the industrial sized hose or whatever. That's what they've got over there at Morton. They water it before every game. They drag it. It's super nice field. Behind home plate, they have like a brick backstop, and then they've got a like a press box, and they've got some like bleacher type seats. And it's just always a really good atmosphere. The fans there are super passionate. I sit where I sit every time I go to their games is right in front of this older couple that goes to every single Morton game, and they're always talking about, oh, this, they know this kid and his stats and how well he's doing. And I don't know if they're grandparents or what, but they always sit in the same spot, and that's honestly kind of how it usually is. A lot of these people at Morton, they're always sitting in the same spots behind home plate there. So no, it's a super fun environment, and the music's always good, and you always know you're in for a good game when you're at Morton.
I was gonna say too, at Morton, I'm pretty sure every time I've been there, they have the grill going.
Yes.
Like it smells so good. They've got the
Yes.
grill going. What I like too there is like you can walk down either line and get a good view of the game. The left field line kind of has like almost a seating area, a standing area. Reminds me a little bit like Naz. I love that little piece that they have at Naz where you can go down the left field line. I love watching pregame infield from the little bleachers, like kind of in shallow by the bullpen. Really is where it's at. So love
and
that.
They've got sunken dugouts too, which are pretty big time for the players and stuff. And yeah, it's just a really cool atmosphere. It's in like a complex with other baseball fields too. So on like those Saturday double headers, they'll have younger kids playing, and then they'll head over to the Morton game because all the Morton baseball program is kind of like the celebrities of all those kids are like celebrities in that town. So it's a really cool atmosphere. Right outside of Peoria. It's a smaller town, but not like that small. I don't know. It's just a cool baseball town too. So
one other note I had on that is they have like the natural hitter's eye because it's all trees back there,
Yep.
which is really cool. I thought so. Just one last little nugget on that park.
It's an awesome spot. So flipping down to my third pick now. Again, this is a very, very tough decision for me, but I think what's going to seal the deal with this school is I saw them play Dunlap in a night game, and it was super awesome, super chippy back and forth, really tight in that game, and there's a ton of people. It was packed, and that is Washington High School. They've got like behind home plate, they've got this hill. You kind of look down on the field, and then you can easily walk around the field and get good videos or whatever we're doing. But again, just the atmosphere. That Mid-Illini Conference loves baseball. They're smaller towns that are just very passionate about their sports. So I think Washington, Morton, those are two really good ones. And it was hard to choose between who should be 2 and 3, but just having both of those on my list, I feel pretty good, to be honest with you. So I'll go Washington at 3. But Def, you're up next.
Yeah, my next pick, I'm going to take McHenry. They have a brand new turf field. I saw them play Burlington Central last year up at their place. Got to see Brandon Shannon pitch and Caden Wisniewski, so that was really cool to see that. But they have a nice, area behind home plate where you can move freely and scout. But it's also just a nice area. I liked the drive when I went up there. It's a little bit longer of a drive for me, but I like it. So McHenry's going to be my third pick.
All right, I'm going to go, what is this, my third pick? Yeah, third pick.
Yeah, I'm just prepping here. I need to have 2 ready again, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay, all right.
Yeah. I'm going to go with Joliet Catholic. I got some connections there with, I played summer ball there for, 2 weeks one summer with the Joliet Dirtbags, and so I know the private parking, all right? So I can park, secretly, and no one will bother me. That's a little thing I learned from playing there.
Well, it's not a secret now.
Well, you don't know where it's at. I just told you there's private parking. You don't know where. And so I get fired up just because of that, and, I know Coach Voss pretty well, so that's it's always good to see him. But I'm a big fan of when I can just set down, my gun and my book and like not have to worry about like holding it. And so the bleachers they got, you can stand back there and just place everything down and just watch, and then grab it and go when you need to. And then I really, really like the little porch they have in left field. I've gotten some cool video from there, like a final out video last year I thought was pretty cool from there. And then in left field, they got another like porch. I'm just a big porch guy. I love porches at baseball fields. They earn points for me. Yeah, and I mean it's just one of the nicer all natural fields in the state as well. And I just got a soft spot for Joliet. I lived there for a couple of years in college, so that's my number 3.
Plenty of good players that have come out of Joliet Catholic to go see. One that I went and saw there, TJ Schlageter, now at Louisville, but got to see him and Trace Swiderski over there a couple years ago. I think right now I'm just kind of trying to buy time until I really know what picks I want to solidify here. I think for me, my next pick has got to be Lamont. It's another park that, like, kind of like Morton, Gavin. It doesn't sit on campus. I want to say it's like the Bell Park or the Bell Sports Complex. Because there is some other, like the softball fields over there, but it is an absolutely beautiful park. As far as the playing surface is concerned, they do a great job. I think they have their own groundskeeper out there that works solely on those fields. I always try to make it a point when I go to see Lamont to try to catch a beautiful day, because Coach Storacco does a great job. Made it to state a number of times, couple state titles. But he runs it like a college program. So if I do go out there, especially a Saturday, catching a Saturday morning game there, to where you get out there early, you see all his guys take BP. They've got the music going. It's reminiscent of like back when I played in college, and you get that music going for BP. That's, one of the biggest things I miss about playing college baseball. So I love going out there early, watching guys get BP, and then how they do their whole pregame warm-up. And they always have guys. There's always guys to watch. I love behind home. They have an area, where it's like a mini bleacher. If you need to get right up against the net to get quality video, you can. And then they have little circle tables down each line to where you can navigate, get video out. You can even go all the way down the third base line if you want to and get a good view. But I love where it sits. I love the whole complex. It is a beautiful, beautiful baseball field for a high school park. So Lamont would be my next choice there. And then if I'm going to solidify my final choice, man, I've got a lot of good ones, and I know we want to maybe touch on some that, at the end here that just missed the cut. But I am going to go Civic Memorial as my final pick. And, it's also not on campus. It's at the Bethalto Sports Complex. And full disclosure, that's where it was when I went and watched them back my first spring doing this. So it would have been like 2016. I think they still play there. If you don't, Civic Memorial, feel free to shout us out, let us know. But I loved this park. I went down to make a little Southern Illinois trip, watch a couple arms. I think I went over to Triad the day after. But what I love so much about it is I was driving through country roads, and then all of a sudden you just see this park kind of sitting up on a mini hill. And I remember parking and kind of walking. Maybe I didn't know where I was going. Maybe there's a closer spot to park. I didn't have the Hammett inside info there. But I remember walking kind of a long way up to the park and having just a beautiful walk up there. Old school setup, kind of off on its own, and a really cool bleacher setup behind home. And that was, for me, my first introduction to just how cool these Southern Illinois fields are. I mean, I think we have a lot of them on our list, and then you start talking about Central Illinois with Rochester and Washington and Morton. But man, they really care about baseball. And there's all kinds of like cool, unique parks down there, like Blazer Field, like you mentioned, Hammett at O'Fallon it's super unique. And like the way they have their dugout, which also goes up to the press box at O'Fallon. But yeah, Civic Memorial for the uniqueness of it. And one of my first parks that I went to and was kind of like, whoa, this is really, really cool. So that's my final pick.
All right, my final pick is actually my 1-1, but I knew no one would pick it. So I'm going with Wheaton Academy as my number one. There's just some nostalgia there. Like, I grew up, I played tournaments there, and anyone that has not been there, part of their fence in left field is a church. So, like, literally, you, like, the church is in fair territory, so balls just could, like, bang off the church, which I just think is kind of, I don't know, it's just kind of wild. But it's a really nice setup. The field, like, the surface itself is really good. The deal breaker for me was just how close you are to the action. I love when you can like get right up on them. Like for like pitching video, I've seen Owen Murphy there before. You could probably dig up the old videos there, but you could you just get right up in there and it's a really great view, and then you can go down the line. And for hitting, it's just a really good view. Like anywhere you go, like there's no bad view for video. But yeah, I just love Wheaton Academy. I've only been there once, but I definitely want to go back.
I've been there once too, Hammond. You're spot on.
Yeah.
That place is really, really cool. And if I was a right-handed hitter, I would absolutely love hitting there. If I had any kind of juice, because it is a short porch.
Watch out for the church, though.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they shouldn't have put it there, right? Well, is that it? Is that the final pick there, Gavin?
No, we got Def and me still.
Okay, sorry. I got excited
you're
to
good.
list off all these that I had on my list.
All right, for my final pick, I'm going with Sycamore. What I loved about Sycamore was just the overall setup of this field. They play at this community park in the area, but I love the field. Part of it like reminded me of the high school field I played at back in Ohio growing up.
Northmont, right? Let's shout it
Yep.
out.
Yeah,
All right.
go Bolts, baby. So the thing with Sycamore, like also the center field wall is like kind of wooden and it almost gives you like that old timey baseball park feel. And then on top of that, the setup behind home plate is like fenced in. It's almost like a cage where, and they have like a little bit of like a laid out slab of turf back there too for you. So, they let me, hang out back there and do my thing. So, just honestly love the overall landscape of that park. So Sycamore's my final pick there.
All right. The final pick of the draft here. So this was tough for me. I actually had another school picked. And then as we were talking, I was like, oh, this might be the spot. St. Joe Ogden. They got a new park down there. And I think it's actually in St. Joseph's, not Ogden.
Easy to find too, right?
Yeah, I was like, so last year I went to their game and they were playing Monticello, and I drove around for like probably 30 minutes trying to find this field because they got a new field, and I was using Apple Maps and it's not on Apple Maps, but it's on Google Maps. This new field, so I was having a tough time finding it, but it is right outside of town, down the road from their high school. Super nice field. It's turf. They have kind of like him that you were talking about, the covering over the bleachers. They have a big bleacher section, and it was awesome. The atmosphere is good, similar to a lot of these Central Illinois, Southern Illinois schools, and I mean some of the schools you guys were talking about too. Like they just love baseball down here, so it's like a very sports-centric school. So a lot of the people are super involved in the community. But I'm gonna hold off. I guess I'm gonna hold off before I say anything else. But that's got to be number 4 for me. So, do you guys want to talk through some of our honorable mentions, though?
I would love to because there's so many. It was so hard to choose, and I love some of these parks that got left off the list. I may just rattle them off here if you don't mind. I think Evanston deserves a huge shout out. I watched a playoff game there. New Trier versus Glenbrook North, and it is a really cool atmosphere. The bleacher setup's solid, but I love the fence. They've kind of got like a mini wall and left. I think you mentioned it, Defaball, like that old school wood like fence. It's really nice. It's a beautiful park. That's one right off the bat. And then for me, Danville Stadium, one of the oldest venues in the country. That's like still standing. I think they shot the movie The Babe there. But beautiful, beautiful park. It is super old school. Everything about it is old school. The nostalgia there is so cool though, and I know Danville Area Community College plays their home games there. Danville High School plays there. The Danville Dans in the gosh, what is it called now? But it used to be the CICL,
I think it's the
the
Prospect
Prospect
League now.
League. Yeah, so the Prospect League plays there. But I've spent a lot of time at that park. I love that park. Lanphier Park along the same lines in Springfield. I don't know if a high school team plays there. I don't know if Springfield High plays there, Gav, but it's another beautiful park, old school park, really, really cool, just setting, kind of right in the middle of like downtown Springfield too, it seems like. But those are just a couple. Let me check my list here as I rattle them off. Lake Park is an awesome, facility. They just got turf on the infield there as well. And then I think the one I really wanted to mention was I went down and watched Effingham versus St. Anthony a few years ago, and I watched Zach Lee on the mound for Effingham. Mason Hull was playing shortstop for Effingham. He went on to play at Missouri State, but the reason it wasn't like 1-1 for me or anything was I honestly wasn't even sure what it was called. I had to Google it. I think it's like a Park District field that they play this game at, when it's the crosstown rivals. And I felt like the whole town came out. It was a night game. Had a really cool behind home plate. Like you almost sat like head high, was like at field level. It was really unique and just one of the coolest atmospheres I've ever been to for high school baseball. So yeah, I'm sure you guys have some others to rattle off here as well.
Yeah. So, sorry, Pete.
No, go ahead.
The predicament that I was in there with number 4 was Monticello and St. Joe Ogden, because Monticello has also got a really cool setup where like right behind home there's like a little area where like the scouts can kind of stand, I guess, and it's like almost a pathway, and then above that is like a bleacher section. And it's really nice to get around there too and take videos, but they have a turf field now too, and their whole athletic complex is really nice. They have a nice turf football field, which is really cool. So they have a cool field as well, but I felt like St. Joe Ogden probably took it there. But then Central Catholic too, Bloomington Central Catholic, right down the road. They have a super cool park. It's actually McGraw Park is where it's at, but it's like a nice little neighborhood. And then in the outfield they have like a water fountain that has like lights in it. Sometimes if it's night, it'll light up. So that's pretty cool. Geneseo is another really nice field up there in the Quad City area. All turf. They have like in center field, way beyond center field, there's like this super big house that is like in the background of it, which is kind of cool. Champaign Central has a turf field. It's really nice. Mattoon, I just went there last spring, and they have a really nice turf field as well. Glenwood's got one of those cool older fields with like the covering like you guys were talking about. But yeah, there's a ton. But yeah, I'll let you guys kind of get in there. But those were some of my schools that I was back and forth with.
One that definitely needs to be mentioned, Revis. Drew, have you been there?
I actually have not, and I've seen a bunch of videos, and then I know, the videos that you put out from last year, that place looks so nice.
Yeah, it's legit. They got like the wooden fence like you were talking about, but like their bullpens are in right and left field, and the fence kind of like sinks down, and you can like see into them. So I think that's like really unique and cool. But no, they got like a little stadium behind the plate. It was packed. It was a playoff game, so I couldn't really maneuver too well, but the whole setup was awesome. And then Oswego, I got to throw them in there. Won a sectional there, so I got some history, just like playing wise. But ton of seating. I don't know why there's so much. It's like a college almost. But like a ton of room to walk around, like down the lines behind the plate. Saw Noah Schultz and Ashton Izzy pitch there. With like literally 60 to 70 MLB scouts.
I remember that being kind of tough.
Yeah, that was tough.
That day.
But that was also like the coolest thing I've ever like seen in my life. So yeah, Oswego definitely needs to be on there.
All right, I'll rip these off real quick. So my honorable mentions are Huntley, Mundelein, St. Viator, and Lincoln Way Central. With Lincoln Way Central, it was probably the coolest atmosphere I saw all spring last year. Saw them play their crosstown rival, Lincoln Way West, and Lincoln Way Central student section was absolutely crazy, in the best way too. Like I thought they went about everything the right way. But that was really cool. St. Viator's a really nice setup of a field. We've talked about that brick backstop already, but they have that, and it's also just a nice park. Really like the field setup there. And then Mundelein and Huntley for me were just great places to go scout a game. You can move freely behind home, first or third, do whatever. And then with Huntley, like the pregame music there was awesome. And also like just seeing their pregame routine, like Coach Jakubowski's bouncing all over the field. He's throwing BP, fungos, whatever, and he's got a ton of energy. And it like had me pumped up just to scout their game. So those are my honorable mentions there for the ballpark draft.
All right, couple more here, Gavin, before we call it quits. But I think Triad deserves a shout out. I'm not sure if I missed anybody saying that, but getting that turf infield now, and that's another spot where you can kind of get right up behind home plate and get a good view if you need to. Rushville Industry it's a wild shot out there, but I remember going scouting Briar Stinson a while back. I think he's down at Drury now playing. But he was a really, really talented right-handed bat. Went out to Rushville Industry. Didn't know where I was going. Field is kind of parked right behind, right next to the school. Like you're basically parking lot watching the game. Naperville Central, I think, is a cool one to just scout a game. Went and saw a bunch of Colin Barzy at bats and Pombo as well. Waukegan, that's another random one. Went to watch an arm at Waukegan, but old school, like big bleachers behind home. Now it was 20 degrees when I watched that game, so that's probably why it wasn't, didn't make the top four. York is another solid spot. Downers Grove North I really like, just from all the times we went and saw, George Wolkow and Jude Warwick and Janicki and all those guys. But another place where you can kind of get right up next to the fence, move around. There's some freedom there at that field. And then Libertyville, I remember watching Riley Gowans throw the ball. Steven Sanchez at Mundelein, I want to say they were facing each other. But Libertyville I thought was a cool park. And then St. Charles North, for one of the main reasons, like I kind of love Lamont. Coach Genke over there treats it like a college program. They do a whole bunch of stuff pregame. I like to go see him on a Saturday where you can get out there 2 hours before, watch guys hitting in the cage or pregame on the field. And then they always play a good brand of baseball. So just respect Coach Genke and St. Charles North and the program he's had. But just another really cool venue with fans that get it, fans that are locked in, and I typically see them, play a crosstown rival in St. Charles East, which helps that atmosphere.
All right, so that is our ranking, our favorite baseball field, our high school field draft there. We all got through our top four, and then we also had our honorable mention. So I'm going to try and find a good Canva graphic that we've got going right now to potentially throw that one out on socials and see if we got any opinions on who had the best picks there.
Well, I would love to hear who we missed. Like, what are some fields out there we need to get to? I'm sure that if anybody's listening here, like, throw out some of your favorites. We would love to hear. I mean, a lot of mine were, kind of personal preference, but also I thought they were sweet fields. And sorry to cut you off there, Gavin, but
no, you're good.
Let's get some public to let us know what we're missing.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I would love to see some more fields, or if people have pictures of them or something, send them in the comments or something like that. But no, that'd be awesome. But Def, this is typically your kind of section, and this week we didn't have a ton of company news or anything to talk about, so I know there's some big Chicago news in the MLB this past week. So what do you got for us?
Well, I'm smiling because I feel like we might get Drew fired up here. I know he was wanting some Chicago baseball news, and that's exactly what he got last week. First off, the White Sox traded Garrett Crochet to the Red Sox. The cool thing with that is that they got Braden Montgomery back, and for us as a company, Braden Montgomery was a Super 60 kid back in 2021. Drew is actually repping a Super 60 hat right now, convenient, and the quarter zip. Check him out. That's a company man right there. So That happened with the White Sox, and then over on the north side, for you guys, I think we might have split feelings here, but the Cubs acquired Kyle Tucker from the Astros, which, um, depending on who you talk to, your opinion, I mean, that's a big time bat going to the Cubs. As a Reds fan on this call, I hate it. But I know for you guys, unless you're Drew, it might fire you up a little bit. So,
Well,
go
actually,
ahead.
Tyler, I saw, yeah, I think it actually was this morning or maybe yesterday at night. I was scrolling through Twitter and some Cubs fan page had posted a bat of Kyle Tucker's when he was with the Astros, and I don't remember the full details of it, who he was facing, but it was a right-handed reliever who was throwing
It's Felix
like
Bautista.
101, 102. Say it again.
Felix Bautista
Yes.
in the World
Was it the
Series,
Orioles?
or would that have been the World Series? No, playoffs. Something.
Well, anyway, yeah, he was like taking, fouling him off, really taking a good count, and then he finished the at bat with a home run to right field. And yeah, I'm pretty excited about it just from what I've seen, what you've said, Def, some of his stats, like looking through his baseball reference page. So no, it's I think it seems like a pretty good thing to get a good bat like that.
Yeah, I mean, it was mixed feelings at first, but he's a top 20 player in the MLB, I would think.
Oh yeah.
Just open up the wallet, Tom. Like, I'm good to see him just start spending at this point. And I heard that they're in the market now for like some good starting pitching. I don't know, maybe they turn Bellinger into something with like the bullpen pieces, and then I don't know. We'll see. There definitely needs to be some other stuff done. Like, this is not Kyle Tucker does not make the Cubs a contender just on his own, but it's a good start.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see what happens with it. Just with the fact that they have control of Tucker for 1 year. I'm hoping that they lock him up for more than just 1 year. But there was also another trade, Tyler, and as you were talking, I wanted to mention it. Just kind of popped in my head. But Caleb Durbin was a part of a big trade for Devin Williams, the reliever for the Brewers that is going to the Yankees. Um, Caleb Durbin was a 2018 grad from Lake Forest, went to Wash U down in Missouri. And they're high on him. Everything I'm hearing about the trade is he's like an elite bat to ball guy, can really, really run. So just it's cool. First off, Braden Montgomery being a piece of that Garrett Crochet deal. The fact that he was a Super 60 guy was maybe one of the best Super 60 guys that we've had come to the Super 60 that I've seen in person. Like, we had Jared Kelenic, Max Clark. I think Braden Montgomery can fit right in that mix of just like high level superstars that we've seen come through the Super 60. And I know I'm missing some, Alec Thomas, and there's plenty more that have, Gavin Lux is another one. But then the Caleb Durbin, just to see an Illinois prospect that went D3, that is a huge piece of a big trade is really cool for me, Tyler. So yeah, hoping for the best with the Cubs, the White Sox, hopefully loading up the farm system. I know the big thing with the Cubs trade for Tucker was that they didn't lose any of their like top prospects, or at least the list is still really strong. So we'll see what happens here with the rest of the free agency.
And one little fun nugget about that, the Cubs now have the number 1 overall pick from the 2015 draft in Dansby Swanson, number 5 now with Kyle Tucker, and then number 9 with Ian Happ. And I actually remember watching that draft because Illinois baseball was playing Vanderbilt in the regional or super regional at Illinois, and Dansby Swanson was on that Vanderbilt team, and he got the call on the field after Vanderbilt beat Illinois. So I remember seeing that, and that was super cool. So now the Cubs have 3 first-round picks from that draft, which is pretty cool.
Gavin, what year was that?
2015.
Because you're talking about Dansby Swanson being the top pick or whatever, but Illinois had a top 10 pick that same year.
Tyler J, right? He was a 6th overall pick.
I was just going to look it up because you started talking about it. I was like, I swear Tyler J was on that list too.
Yeah, Tyler J was number 6, I believe. And he had started that game, if I remember right, and he also got the call right after that game, which was pretty cool too.
Yeah,
and honestly, that Illinois team had a lot of really good players on it. I mean, just pitchers that I remember is Jay, Drayson Johnson got drafted to the Rockies that year. Duchesne. Right?
Duchesne out of Joliet
Duchesne?
Catholic, the lefty.
Yeah.
Kevin Duchesne just could flat pitch. I
Cody
know he would like
Sedlock,
pitch
I
on
think.
Fridays. What's that?
Cody Sedlock, I think, was a sophomore on that team, and then the next year he got drafted. I think is how it went down. He was the first round pick to the Orioles. But no, that was a really good team. That was fun to watch them. But yeah, so moving on to prospect of the week. Tyler, I think you're probably ready here. I'll let you get into it first if you want.
Yeah, thanks. For me, I'm actually moving into the 2026s now. We've been highlighting a bunch of 25s over the last few weeks, but kicking it off for me is Brandon Thompson, the catcher out of St. Viator. Brandon's been a kid. Personally, I've just been super high on since I got to see him play last spring. We brought him out as part of our Future Games team this past summer. And Pete actually wrote about him recently on our hot list, which is a national piece we do as a company. You can find that on our news tab on our site. But Pete put him on there as one of the guys with the best field tool in the entire state, which, I wholeheartedly agree with. I think he's a kid that can really just flat out catch, which is kind of a lost art at times, I feel like, anymore in today's game. But he's a true catcher, in my opinion. And, he's also not your typical framed catcher either. He's a 6'1", 189-pound kid. Looks like a physical kid in the box. We brought him down to the Future Games, and he was among the event leaders from the workout, just an average EV and average distance out of the entire country that we brought down to the Future Games. So really cool kid who's got gap-to-gap power from the right side. So really excited to see where he lands at the next level. But Brandon Thompson is a kid I've long been high on, and excited to see what he does this spring also.
And Drew, I see you have a pretty interesting right-handed arm as your guy this week.
Yeah, I'm in the 2025 class, so we're looking at an uncommitted, unsigned senior, and that's as far as I know. I do research here, trying to dig on his social, and I don't see anything listed as a commitment for right-handed pitcher Carter Schaffner out of Yorkville. He's got to be one of the top arm talents still left in the state. I mean, we had him up to 92 this past summer at the national championships. I'm just looking at a tweet they had thrown out on him with a ton of swing and miss to the fastball. So he's a 6'4", 6'5" righty with a really, really quick arm, and I think kind of unlimited ceiling when it comes to velocity. It comes out of his hand really, really good. Now, it's not as polished as some other guys in the class, but it's definitely a guy that should garner a ton of interest here moving forward. You don't see too many 6'4", 6'5" righties with live arms like that still on the market. So Carter Schaffner, Yorkville, 2025. Get a look at him if you haven't already.
And Pete, I see you got somebody from Oswego on your list.
Yeah, I'm going with Dylan King. As far as I know, uncommitted, 2025. Actually a football player too, which, I mean, it'd be hard not to with his size. Let's see, what do I got him at? 6 foot 210. I mean, he looks every bit of that. Saw him at the Kickoff Classic. In-game performer, homered, doubled, moves around first base good, 7'2" runner. So at that size, pretty good. But I just really liked the right-handed swing. There's a ton of there's intent and it's aggressive, but it's still under control. He was on time. Gets the foot down early, just adjusts pretty quick from launch. And the bat speed stands out too. He was averaging. We had him in event averaging around 71, 72, but he can get up to the 77, 78 mile an hour range. So just a physical corner infielder to know.
Yeah, and then my uncommitted prospect of the week is 2025 Blaine Williams from Tremont here in Central Illinois area. He was originally committed to Illinois, decommitted a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago now. Honestly, might have been longer than that. But anyway, he's a strong, toolsy kid, right-handed hitter. He had like the highest catcher velocity at our events in 2024. It was 87 miles an hour. He's recorded a 191 pop time, 96 mile an hour exit velocity. He's a 6'7" runner, and then at the pro case last year, we brought him to the pro case or invited him to the pro case. here in Illinois, and his fastball was up to 91 at that event. So just a really toolsy kid with strength, and I actually think I remember him mentioning at the Pro Casey he was a wrestler. But yeah, uncommitted 2025, Blaine Williams out of Tremont. He's one to check out and to go watch this spring for sure for Tremont. But yeah, kind of moving on now. We are going to have on Jesse Bugger, the head coach at Triad, as our next segment here, and super excited to get into it with him. So let's get into that.
Well, guys, we are lucky enough here to have another really, really impressive high school coach, somebody who's done it for a long time, had a ton of success, does it the right way. Jesse Bugger from Triad High School, head coach since 2008. And is from the St. Louis Metro East area. He played high school baseball at Edwardsville. Went to Southwest Missouri State for 2 years before transferring back home to SIU Edwardsville. Southwest Missouri State is now Missouri State.
Yeah, I'm old, so it had a different name.
Well, that wasn't the reason I threw it out there. I wanted to make sure everybody knew what I was talking about. And Coach, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate you taking the time here.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll just get right in there. One of the biggest reasons we want to have you on is, first off, you've done a great job at Triad. You guys are competing for a state title at the 3A level seemingly every single year. But you're from that Triad Edwardsville area. What was your childhood like growing up in Edwardsville? As far as just kind of maybe leading you to what you're doing today. But you played at Edwardsville and played for Tom Pyle. Just a little bit about your background.
Yeah, I played for Tom Pyle, graduated in '94. Edwardsville's a little bit different place than it is now. Probably a little bit more similar to the way Triad is now as far as size. Definitely not that place is big now. There's a lot of stuff going on in town. But yeah, I was between the first state championship and the second one when I played, so there was a lot of tradition already in place. Coach Pyle is an interesting character and definitely can add to your enthusiasm for it. But Edwardsville baseball has always been a big deal. It was certainly a big deal when I was in school, and it's something you really wanted to be a part of if you played baseball. So I was fortunate to play there. And then I got, as far as the coaching stuff goes, I got to play for Coach Pyle, and then I went and played for Coach Gutton, and then I ended up playing for Bo Collins. So I got to see 3 different Hall of Famers do it different ways, and you kind of pick and choose what you like, what you don't like, and then you kind of make it your own after a little bit. But,
Exactly. It's funny you mentioned Coach Gutton, because that was the first time I really had put a connection with you. I had coached for Tim Bunton, who was down under Coach Gutton for a little bit at Southwest.
Yeah, he was the grad assistant when I was there, I believe.
And he mentioned that you guys did cross paths. And a lot of his philosophy and what he does in the game, I have to believe came from Coach Gutton. He had a tremendous amount of respect for him and coached for him for a while. So, I feel like I've kind of had that just assimilate down on through me, or I don't know the right word to put there, but just kind of old school traditional baseball guy. And Tim was very much the same way. And one thing I've really noticed with Triad over the years is you kind of know what you're going to get when you go and see Triad, at least from my perspective. Like, you guys are going to play the game the right way. You're going to compete. You're going to be a tough out. And it seemed to kind of be that way every year in the playoffs. You guys seem to be making a run, making it to state back in 2018. Doesn't really matter, the names on the roster. You guys are going to go about your business. So am I onto something there? Is that something you would agree with? Like, what are some things you try to do?
I think it probably doesn't matter the names just a little bit. We had some downtimes, and high school, public school especially, is stud poker. So you're playing with the cards that you're dealt, and we've been fortunate that a lot of times we do have pretty good cards to put out there. We work really hard at it. We spend a lot of time out there getting ready, and we try to play as difficult a schedule as we possibly put together, so that when we get towards the end of the year, we call it plaque season. When you get the chances to win some plaques, you've hopefully seen as much as possible about what you might run up against in those elimination type games.
You guys got turf on your infield.
We put turf in 2020. So that's a big deal.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's almost understated how big of a deal it can be, especially for a Southern Illinois school who may pop decent weather days here and there in February, March, whenever you actually can get outside or be with your team. Typically, let's just say March 1st. So how have you utilized it? How has it been, a huge benefit?
I think those of us that have turf, especially at the beginning of the season, you kind of hit the ground running a little bit faster than guys that don't. Having not had it before, you got to wait for frost. You got to wait for your field to get in shape to where you can really get on the field. I know, you're dealing with tarps and rain, and right now, I mean, anytime it's decent, you can go get on the field. So those first 2 weeks before we get into the kickoff, early in the year, we've been on the field a lot. Like last year, I think we were on the field every day before we played a game, and then we talked to some of our opponents, and they're like, "We haven't been outside yet." Um, so I mean, that's a huge advantage. And then just being able to play whenever it's not raining. We were fighting tarps and fighting getting fields ready, and it just makes life a whole lot easier down here at Midwest playing baseball.
No, and I know it's been it seems like it's been an effort from a lot of high schools around the state to try to get turf on at least infields. Because I will say, like to your point, especially up in the northern part of the state, the first games these guys are playing is the first times they're on a field. And let alone, hitter versus pitcher and seeing, a live arm coming at you. But to me, it's the ground balls. It's the way the fields play. Early on in the year, they're so soft. You don't know what you're going to get. So evaluating a player isn't even really fair at that stage. So when we are
Right.
lucky enough to come down to the Kickoff Classic and almost all the venues are turf and you're actually seeing baseball the way it's supposed to be played, it's it's just nice to see that versus like, man, for the first couple weeks of the season up here, there's
Yeah,
you can only
it's got
put
to
so
be
much
rough.
stock into it.
Right.
Exactly.
And then
Um,
we get out there. We might have, even if it's like 35 or 30, we're going to go out and take fungos, and we're going to work defense. We might keep the pitchers inside and take care of them a little bit. They're a little bit soft, but we're going to get our work in one way or another, and
Uh,
make sure that we are ready to go. So we always kind of try to work backwards from the kickoff classic and make sure that we've at least got some semblance of a team defense put in by then, and just try to get a billion reps by the time you get into that first game.
yeah, well, that's awesome to hear, and definitely a luxury. Depending on where you are in the state, I think it does make a big difference in baseball. And I know it's not about how fast you start because it's all about getting your team to be ready to go in May and playoff time, but definitely a nice advantage there. And
Yeah, it's not about how fast you start, but if you
yep.
can start a little bit higher, then maybe you can get a little bit further along by the end, instead of just that month can make a big difference of really being on the field.
I like that statement because you're kind of talking about the floor of your team. And if your team starts at a higher floor, they can it's maybe easier to get to
Maybe
that
we can
higher
push a
ceiling.
little bit further at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, make one more
Okay.
play.
Well, I want to open it up to our guys. We've got Tyler Deffelball with us. We got Peter
Right.
Hammett. We've got Gavin Smith. They are instrumental to everything we do here in the state, whether it's the scouting, whether it's the podcast, whether it's events. And I know there may be some questions floating around. And Gavin, you had put together a bunch of good ones.
yeah, Coach. I think one thing that we, as a staff, like to know about with these high school teams is some of these underclassmen that maybe we don't have a ton on, or we don't have a ton of information about, we haven't seen before. So I guess my question for you is, who are some underclassmen on your team this year that might be you know, have a big impact on your team?
Well, we like our freshman class a lot, but I don't know that any of them are really going to be ready to impact this spring. Our 27s, we've got quite a few guys that are going to do something, that are going to contribute, especially probably at this point on the mound, and one or two of them uh, in the lineup. But we are older, which makes life a little bit easier. Um, but well, my nephew, he can swing it a little bit, Augie, and then Jackson Vaughn really swings it nice. And then Clucker came out of nowhere last year and pitched more innings than anybody else, which I would not have guessed that I would have used a freshman at all on the mound last year with some of the guys that we had, but some of the circumstances led to we ended up going a little bit deeper, and he just kept succeeding. Um,
And that's
those three
Nathan
for sure.
Clucker.
Nathan Clucker,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, he did really well. He's a little bit different, kind of a little bit of a slinger. but he's a strike thrower. He gets lost. It's got a lot of movement. Velo's starting to jump a little bit. It's a pretty good sized kid. Um, and then everybody kind of knows already. The site kids have moved over here. They're all moved in and registered for classes and getting ready to move in. So Keegan obviously played varsity baseball last year at a big school and he can swing it. And I know you guys have all seen him in the summers and falls. He's a nice player.
No, absolutely. Big left-handed juice there too down the road. How huge is that Keegan is coming in to the district? Because I know you lost a quality catcher last year.
Well, we do have Landon Loomis is going to be a senior. I think
Okay.
he's committed to Minnesota State. He had a great summer, and he really swung it well for us last year. But we played him out of position because we had Carter, and Carter Vanderbilt was really strong behind the plate, and he's at Kaskaskia now.
Yeah.
So we've got some options that gives us some depth behind the plate, and probably some depth at first base with that, which is a big deal because I have a tendency to kind of grind our catchers into the ground because I don't like seeing balls go to the backstop. And
Yeah.
it's really hard not to write that guy's name that steals those strikes for you, that makes those blocks. So
Well,
so
and you
this
need
gives us
your
a chance not to do that.
catcher to be a grinder. they
Right.
they need to be the biggest grinder on your team. They got to do all the dirty work. They gotta stay the latest. They got to catch all the arms. Yeah, no, that's a fair want from a coach. You mentioned your nephew, Augie,
Augie.
but I wanted to bring up your son. You know, it's something that Coach Funkhauser's done over at Edwardsville. He's had his boys come through the program. Hayden is
Hayden
now
is a
committed
senior.
to Kaskaskia. How was
Yep.
that process being? It's very unique to me being a high school coach, having your son come up. What kind of difficulties did you face from a dad coach, son relationship? How did you handle it?
Well, probably not as well as I could have at times. I mean, I'm sure. Um, we spent a lot of time together at the field, and always have. And he grew up around the program. We look back at some of the old championship pictures and stuff, and there's this little kid hanging around all of them. So he's grown up in the dugout, um, which I think makes it easy and makes it tough at times because you don't even. He's the kind of guy at this point where you don't have to yell at him, but you give him a look that he's seen you give 1,000 other players, and he knows you're not pleased with what's going on here. So I think there's an added amount of pressure to it to some extent, but I'm really kind of hoping, with the commitment being done, being senior year, that he can relax a little bit and play more like he's played in the summer times, to be honest with you, where, dad's not the boss. Dad's just the guy throwing BP before they gave him to go play.
Yeah.
So, and I think that will happen. He puts in an extraordinary amount of work. Obviously, with me being the coach, you don't really get. I mean, he wants to put in all the work, but you wouldn't get away with not putting your work in and being ready to go. So, and all our guys right now, this group of 25s is pretty special as far as their work ethic. They're in the weight room, they're in the cages, they're with their instructors. They're really getting ready.
Well, and it's a great transition because I want to ask, like, how do you feel about this year's club? What are you excited about with the club? We just kind of mentioned we emailed the preseason questionnaires out. We're starting to get some responses in. It's early. There's still plenty of time, but we love looking at it. We love starting to get our wheels spinning about the spring. But yeah, what do you like? What do you got going?
Well, I think we have a unique amount of depth on the mound for us. We are 3A, so it's sometimes you are top heavy with your talent, but we have, I think, more arms than what we've had in quite some time. We've had some top end guys, and we've got the capability to have that right now with Winslow, the Oklahoma State commit, and Sawyer Bronson's a senior who maybe he's not 6'6", but a guy gets outs and he's very competitive. Burn Reader is going to be strong on the mound, and then the addition of Nolan Keller coming back to Triad should really help. And then Clucker led the team in the innings last year. And then we saw some good stuff out of Grayson Yank towards the end of the year, kind of, not nines guys, but mid 80s guys with the ability to pump strikes with multiple pitches. So that's really a big deal when you're playing the schedule that we play and you're playing in the conference that we play where it's going to be very competitive. Well, you're going to face guys where it's going to be tough to score. You can't give up a lot of runs.
Absolutely. And you mentioned a plethora of arms there.
Yeah, and there's probably a couple more on the outskirts, but right now maybe they won't be on the outskirts when we get to March.
Are there some teams down in that area, coaches, teams, places you go that you really enjoy the competition every year? You know what you're going to get out of Highland or Muscuda, or are there
Yeah, I
certain
don't know if I'd
programs?
say I enjoy it all that much, but yeah, our conference is a grind.
Yeah,
You know what you're going to get with Highland. Um, One way or another, you're going to play a close game, and you're going to be one miscue on a button D from losing. Um, they're going to take advantage of anything that you let them take advantage of. And there's no secret to beating them. You need to get about a 4-run lead and get the leadoff hitter off base every game, but it just doesn't always work out that way. And then, Mosquito lately's had arms with Musso and the Klein kids looking like he's going to be pretty tough to deal with for a couple of years. So, it's a good conference. So, and
no,
then
it
our
is.
our non-conference schedule, I I'm an idiot. I mean, I try to light it up. So we're gonna play, Funky and O'Fallon, and we're gonna go to Kentucky. And then when Tim's putting out the kickoff schedule, he's like, "Who do you want?" I'm like, "Give us the best 3As that are coming down. We'll see where we're at." And some years we play some 4As depending on who's coming down. We play a lot of 4As on our schedule. We only play one or two A schools and 1A schools. I don't think we play any, but like they're Columbia, Effingham, St. Anthony.
And even
They're
those, you're
guys,
probably going to get their best arm. Columbia's
right?
going
Because
to have
they're out
some
of conference
dudes.
play
Yeah.
by the time we're playing them, and we're still probably hanging in there. So that's okay.
Yep.
We're gonna go over and play Vianney and Jackson early this year and Chatham. We'll find out who we are before we get to the end.
Absolutely. And either way, it'll kind of expose parts of your team that you need to work on throughout the year. I think that's always the beauty of it too. The
Yeah,
good
you got to
teams
flip
they
those rocks
expose.
over and see what's up. You know,
Exactly, exactly. Well, I want to open this back up to Tyler or Peter or anybody else that may have a question here.
Hey coach, I'll hop in here. You kind of talked a little bit about, being in your area, you're essentially you have to play the hand you're dealt, and with the talent that comes through your program. Is there any sort of collaboration with you and maybe it's, the local youth leagues there or the travel organizations in the area, with how you want some of those younger guys to develop as they come up through your program?
yes and no. I mean, I coach the seventh grade team too,
Okay.
just so they kind of get used to practicing 5, 6 days a week and playing every day. But as far as how guys play or where they play, I mean, we've had a lot of success with guys that played for Extreme. We've had a lot of Gators over the years and GBA guys, and most people in the clubs that they're playing, and those are the two big ones probably, but we've had others in the past. Most people are doing a pretty good job of working on skill development with their guys. And we kind of keep tabs on everybody that way. We've got guys, pitchers going to MPL with Huber. We've got guys going and seeing our guy at Extreme. We don't have anything too formal instruction wise right now because of the rules and regulations of it. But we are definitely keeping tabs on everybody. We've got hitters going to Cody Massey. We've got hitters going to Jake Depew. We've got them all over the place. But we think they're learning pretty good stuff for the most part. And to be honest with you, when I first got into it, I wanted to control more of that. But I think sometimes you get a lot of confirmation bias that way when you start looking at certain players and you kind of pigeonhole them a little bit. And we had one or two leave for the summer months, come back and think, that guy's pretty good, and I didn't know that he was when before. So it's kind of good for him to some extent to get away from us just a little bit, as long as it's not totally contrary to what we're trying to do. Um, which there are one or two of those out there, but we play. I don't know if it's boring. I don't know. We're going to try to hit. So we're not going to play a ton of small ball. We might move some runners if we've got some guys that can run, but we want to spend all our time on the field preparing to hit as much as humanly possible. So we take tons of BP. So as long as guys are swinging in the offseason and chasing the right things, chasing it, maybe for some guys it's bad speed, for other guys it's more barrel. Um, Exit velos are nice because they get bored in the cage if they don't have them. But I do think they're probably a little bit dependent on that, and I feel bad for them a little bit sometimes because you watch these guys take line drive rounds and they're like, oh man, I topped out at 90 that round. Like I wouldn't even have cared in the 90s. I'd have been hitting the cage, and if it was full of line drives, then that's a good round. But if they don't set a PR, everybody's frustrated at the end of a round.
That's an incredible point because the world is changing to that. And I mean, I don't know if you want to say a problem, but we highlight that. We highlight guys that are strong and have exit velocities. But I love to hear you talk about it and talk about looking for line drive rounds. Because to me, it's all about what kind of hitter you are. If you're
Sure.
if you're a guy that should not be lifting the baseball, then you need to stay on a line. And whether you're peaking at 89 or 99, it shouldn't matter as long as every swing is close to your peak.
Right. I
Um,
mean, I love average exit velocity. A guy
yes,
stays around 90 for a whole round. Awesome. I don't
yes.
really. But if you're 105 one ball and then the rest of the round's like 68 side spin, then we're not really looking for that much.
That is
But
exactly my same feeling. And how you get to your bat speed, how much effort you take in to get to it. Can you repeat? But 100%. And knowing who you are as a baseball player and like who you are as a hitter, because they all come in different shapes and sizes. And what makes a great hitter here, like maybe somebody's just amazing at using the other, going to the opposite field. And some guys all turn and burn. But if you miss a fastball in, he's not missing it,
well,
and
that's
it's
a
going a long
you know,
way.
and sometimes when you're writing your BP on field groups, you got to watch who you're pairing people up with a little bit because you can stick a Hayden Burnerator in the cage and watch him put on a light show. And then, the guy after him looks at it and goes, man, I'd like to do that. But that's not that guy. Maybe he needs to be gapped to get, oppo gap to the line drives all over the place, not necessarily taking out trees and, right center field. So,
Yep. Or
but
if they're
we
trying to be like Hayden Burnrooter and they're lifting everything, they're just flying out to shallow right field. Yeah.
right. We've got a lot of guys, I think, this time that really kind of know who they are. And
Right.
we've got some guys that can really swing it. I think the interesting thing for me when constructing this lineup, or at least way too early a lineup, is we're left-handed in a weird sort of way. And I don't know that I've really ever had like 6, 7 left-handed hitters in a lineup at the same time. This hasn't really worked out that way in the last 20 years, but
Yeah.
it's interesting with some of the people you could possibly run into. Like a Cam Appenzeller might be a real issue.
Yeah, I
It could
think
be anyway, but when you got 6, 7 guys in there,
over the course of the season, these 6 to 7 left-handed bats will play out in your favor versus that time when you're having to face
sure,
Arizona because might not matter if they're
it might
lefty or
not even
righty.
happen. It might not matter if you're right-handed or not. Yeah.
Exactly. But
So,
I was thinking about it though when you said that Sipe was transferring in because he's a very very intriguing left-handed bat and just how nice that is to add a left-handed bat at any time. But it sounds like you've got a ton of them. It sounds like your
Deaver,
boy's going to be one of the ones to mix it up and go
yeah,
right.
he's one of the 2 or 3. Him and Keller are 2 right-handed guys that think of right away. But like Gabe
I like
Deaver's
the
a
Deaver
left-hand
swing.
hitter.
Yeah.
Loomis is a left-hand hitter. Deegan's a left-hand hitter. So there's quite a few. Bernie.
We'll
You
have
know,
to talk after the year to see how you liked it. If you liked having
well,
all
I think
those
it's going to be
lefties
just
in that
fine for
too.
the most part. But well,
Well, that's good stuff there. We've got a couple questions written down. So there was one here I liked, and Peter, it was your first question on the board. I'm curious about that because we're not perfect. We miss guys all the time, whether it's Central Illinois, Northern Illinois, Southern Illinois. But yeah,
Yeah, hey coach, thanks for coming on. I was
yeah,
just
no problem.
wondering if there's any, schools down in Southern Illinois that are overlooked, whether it be by us or just in general, like a school that you really respect, the way they go about their business, that you think they're talented, but maybe they don't get, the light shined on them the way that they should.
and you can say
Uh,
try that as well.
Yeah, you can say
Yeah,
yourself. That's totally fine.
we I don't know. We get enough attention probably for the most part, but like last year, we fell off a little bit, and I was definitely all over them about their PBR ranking and getting way too excited about who they think they are versus who we currently are. But when we do well, people know about it, and we really appreciate the coverage. It's been great the last few years, way more than 20 years ago. It was kind of like Southern Illinois was a little bit of an afterthought, but it's always been pretty good baseball.
and
There
you are spot
are
on there. Like, and that is something we as a staff we know, and it's something that we are going to take a ton of pride in, and we have the last couple years because there is a ton of good baseball down there, like you said, and it needs to be a priority. So
Yeah, and there's a lot of guys really trying hard. Like a lot of coaches doing a really good job um, making life a lot more difficult. I think when I first took over, I mean, I don't. I think you could outcoach people sometimes, like or out prepare, or just do more. Even if you were doing something wrong, you were doing more of it wrong, so you were better off when you ran up against those people. But I think there's a whole lot of people that are trying really hard, going to clinics or getting more baseball guys into their staffs and programs, and you know, there's a whole lot of competition to do really well. I mean, Highland gets plenty of attention, but they're always tough to prepare for. Hawk's always got his guys ready to go to play his style, which is unique to some extent. You know how you prepare against them, and Don Eddy at Muscuda does that to some extent too. Now they're playing a little more small ball with some athletes, and they can swing it at times too. Ebb and flow, just like all of us. You have more hitters some years than others, but they've got arms. But there's a lot of good teams down here. We try to see them all. Like we go across the river quite a bit too, and play the Viannis and CBCs of the world, and kind of find out who we are. And we head to Kentucky for a trip and play McCracken and a couple of those teams. But as far as down here, I think you guys are covering them pretty good. I mean, there's not too many guys really slipping through the cracks that, you know, I'll be honest, like if we're playing somebody out of the area, one of the first things I do is find their roster and hop on PBR and see if I can find some video of whatever pitcher we're going to face or whatever. Sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't, but at least you know what you're up against a little bit. But yeah, I mean, you can find something about most teams that you're going to play in your coverage at some point.
That's great to hear. That's hopefully just another added benefit of what we do is the information is out there for anybody to, find it. Obviously, we want college coaches to be able to find it extremely easily, but for you guys to be able to do a little advanced scouting, get an idea of who you're facing, what the arm's going to be. Well,
yeah, we don't get a chance to do that very often, like in person. We try to do it during the postseason, and we send our underclass coaches all over the state trying to look at possible opponents and possible pitching matchups. But the video does make life a lot easier to at least have an idea of where a guy tops out at velo wise. We do a ton of on-field BP of throwing traditional stuff, but we do a ton of machine stuff and try to match stuff to some extent for people that we're preparing for. It's one of the only ways. We're too old to show the kids any velo, so you gotta turn the machine on a little bit.
Maybe do it for a couple hitters, but then you're gonna have to
you want to go home and cry. But
well, Gavin, Peter, Tyler, do you guys have anything else you want to ask Coach here?
I think I'm good personally. He answered a lot of my questions that I had about the team and stuff, so I'm personally good. But Pete, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was gonna does anyone have any more about high school stuff? Because if not, I was just gonna ask how you got into coaching in general, just like a basic question. But I always like to know, how you got into it. Was there anyone that kind of led you into it? Anyone you try and model after? I know Tom Pyle obviously you mentioned him, but
man, I've been ate up with baseball for a long time. So like when I started playing in high school and you start looking at things realistically, as much as it's hard to do for a kid, you start thinking about how am I going to stay involved with baseball because I really don't know if there's anything I want to do without it. So between Coach Pyle and Coach Butler, and Coach Waldo, those guys were big influences in high school, and then obviously going to college to play and seeing some of that stuff. I learned a lot. I played a ton my freshman year at Southwest Missouri, but it didn't work out so well my sophomore year. So I actually got to stand around a little bit more. I don't know if I would have considered it a benefit at that point, but you learn a little bit more standing over on the sideline sometimes than worrying about your 4 at-bats and the 2 or 3 count balls you might get during a game when you're on the field. So I was starting to get more curious about the moves that were being made and why they were being made, and the pitch calling and kind of the game within the game type stuff, and learned a lot. And then transferred home, and we had a couple really great years. SIUE was Division II at that point. We went to World Series, and then and I had known Coach Collins for a long time. Bo had me stay on after I got done playing, and I helped out for a year before I ended up getting my job over here at Triad. But we would talk through a lot of scenarios and situations in the clubhouse and why he did what he did, and A lot of times he wasn't always the guy that would explain the moves that he was making during the games, but when we sit in the clubhouse after the game and talk about it, you really understood that there's a lot more to making a move than just a gut feeling a lot of times as far as what you should be doing, when you should be doing it. So if there's anybody that probably mentored me as far as decision making and stuff, it's probably Bo, really, in the long run. And then you do see, stuff you like, stuff you don't like. Well, like my staff gets on me at times, but my refusal to bunt at times is probably because I grew up bunting, playing for Coach Pyle all the time. So I probably have to get a little less stubborn with that and move a runner here now and then, but I always want to put as much faith as I can in my hitters because we've prepared them as much as we can. So, but there are probably times where it's a good idea to go ahead and do that.
I think your guys are probably cool with it.
Well, and that's they are.
Yeah.
But you could, in some regards, you could probably take a little pressure off them by moving a runner here and there and make their life a little bit easier too.
True. Just ground ball up the middle is all we need here. We got a guy on third with one out. Yep.
So,
wow. No, this is outstanding, Coach, and I'm a big fan of you and what you've done down there at that program and the field and everything. So just another really, really quality coach coming out of Southern Illinois and who does it right in the state, and that's why you're here, and that's why we wanted to have you on, and really appreciate your time, and we will be down there to see you this spring, I'm sure.
Well, I appreciate it. I would be remiss if I didn't say how much support that we actually get in the community and my athletic director in particular in the school as far as the field and understanding our needs and really trying to give us everything that we could possibly need to try and be successful. So I missed, Kenny Dethridge is awesome as far as setting things up for us, and he got the whole turf project basically. Nobody likes to say no to Kenny, so he worked hard enough on the project long enough that we ended up with a turf infield and a really great place to play high school baseball. So
that is a beautiful facility, and we just went through talking about some of our favorite high school venues in the state, and one of my didn't make our top 4, but one of my picks was Triad because it is a beautiful place to watch a game and scout, and the infield there is beautiful, and it's just another great, there's so many good parks down there in Southern Illinois, all with different vibes to them. It's a really, really unique spot, and kudos to you guys and to Kenny Dethridge, it sounds like.
Yeah. All right. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, Coach.
No problem.
You, Coach. Appreciate it.
All right. You too.
All right. Well, appreciate Coach Bugger coming on to the podcast this week. Next week is Christmas, so we are not going to have a new podcast, but we will have some posts coming out with some kind of directing you back to some old interviews, or not old, but interviews that we've done with coaches on the bullpen so far. So be sure to check those out. Check out our YouTube during the week if you're looking for something to listen to, but we'll still have some stuff coming out to kind of get you to YouTube and listen to some interviews that maybe you missed. And then also the week after Christmas, we pre-recorded an episode with Dominic Vagley today. He was the Big 12 Freshman of the Year. He is a right-handed pitcher at Kansas from Columbia. So super excited for that one to come out. So that will come out the week after Christmas. So appreciate him coming on as well. And had an awesome conversation with him. A lot of good insight for high school kids to dig into and to try and implement themselves. So.
And while you're waiting for something to do over Christmas, check out our top 10 stories from 2025. They'll be floating out all the way up until New Year's.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I also
have some. Go ahead.
I just want to say shout out to all of our listeners, all the people who subscribe to us on YouTube, everybody who listens on Spotify, Apple. Just hope everybody who listens has a Merry Christmas.
Appreciate both those guys coming on today, and we'll see you next time.